Today's episode is very special because I have someone with me who did not have a tech background. In fact, he did not even know what Salesforce is, yet today he works at Salesforce. In our conversation today, he talks about his beautiful, inspiring journey. He talks about how he learned Salesforce, how he got certified, and what brought him to Salesforce. So, enjoy this conversation. Hey Kyle, thank you for
Hi,
thank you for coming on this show. I know I'm very excited. Are you excited?
I'm so excited. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Me too, me too. Amazing. So I know you, I know what you do at Salesforce. Why don't you maybe spend a couple of minutes introducing yourself?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so my name's Kyle Strauss. I'm a solution consultant at Salesforce. I've been at Salesforce since February 2021, so I'm close to 2 years at Salesforce. And I've primarily been working, or I've solely been working in the public sector um, for consulting, like delivery. So public sector, meaning like federal agencies, like the big three, four-letter agencies. We're doing work with them.
Awesome, awesome. Uh, I I want to spend today talking about your career journey. We have spoken in the past. It's such an interesting journey, such an inspiring one. Tell me how it all started. You are at Salesforce. It's you're almost coming up to a year now. But you were never from the tech background. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I went to school, so I went to Texas A&M University.
Hmm.
So I'm an Aggie. I went to school for the degree I got was called industrial distribution. And I'll give a little background there. So I originally wanted to be, or went to school to be, a mechanical engineer. So I started as mechanical engineering track. I quickly learned that the calculus and the physics wasn't really something I was always pretty good at math, but yeah, like college level, like calculus based physics, kinematics and like satellites and electricity and magnetism, all that stuff. I was like, yeah, I don't know if this is for me.
Hmm.
So I did that for a year and I was like, okay, I don't want to do this. So I switched to, it was in the College of Engineering. So I didn't like a lot of the classes I already had taken. Like I still would receive credit for those towards my major, versus if I like switched and went to like business or something like that, I would basically have to start over. So I switched to something called industrial distribution, and a lot of the people that study that or go to school for that, they wind up working for like electrical distributors or oil and gas
Hmm.
distributors, like. And so I graduated with that degree. I went on a couple of interviews. One of them was for a company that sold like valves and pipes to like, you know, Chevron and Exxon and, just huge oil and gas company. But that didn't pan out. Um, because I also graduated in 2009, which was like peak global
Recession.
recession at that time.
Yeah.
Unemployment was pretty high. I mean, I consider myself fortunate. I went on a couple interviews. That one I indicated. I mean, they flew me. I was living in Dallas. They flew me down to Houston. I interviewed there. Still didn't get the job. Um, so job prospects were not looking good when I
Hmm.
graduated. And
Hmm.
my dad owned a business at the time, and so I started working for him.
Hmm.
So right out of college, started working for my dad, and he was paying me $24,000 a year.
Wow. Okay.
So that was my, went to college, got my degree. I that's not an insignificant amount of money, but I definitely thought I was like going to be earning more than that when I
Absolutely.
graduated.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
So started working for my dad. His business, he did, and feel free to interrupt me or anything at any
Yes.
time.
Yes.
I'm just going kind of
Please
way
do.
back,
Please.
I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I need all.
Um,
This is all amazing. So please go.
okay.
Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, so I started working for my dad. He owned a business that provided medical waste services
Hmm.
to doctors, basically. So it's a great business. It was a great business. People hear medical waste and they think, like blood and, body fluids and, all the nasty stuff, syringes, stuff like
Right.
that. And I mean, it is what we pick up, but it's not like, there's like a bin full of stuff and we're just like dumping it in. It's not, So when it's highly regulated, and basically when we picked it up, they were in like cardboard boxes.
Hmm.
And any needles, you've probably seen them. They're just generally referred to like sharps containers. So like if you go to like a public restroom, you'll see like on the wall there's like a plastic, like a red plastic thing. You can put like needles in there. So we weren't like, regularly like handling medical waste. It was essentially like picking up a box and putting it on a truck.
And was that
Um,
related to the undergraduate degree that you did, or was this
no,
something that, like, so you got a
not
job
at
and you were
all.
learning on the job?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, yeah, most people that graduated with my degree, they went and worked at like, companies, probably medium, large size companies with like
Hmm.
hundreds or thousands of employees. I was going to work, for my dad. It was him. He had like one or two drivers, and then my mom like did the books.
Okay.
Um, so I did that. I mean, and so I started working for my dad. We did medical waste. In the beginning, I like drove around with him. Basically, and I like learned sales for my dad. My dad was like a career sales guy. He did a variety of different things in sales, but basically, essentially, it was like going to doctors' offices and trying to like convince them to like sign up for our company, so we
Hmm.
can provide medical waste services to them. And it was a lot of cold calling. I mean, yeah, we would go to like a hospital, and the nice thing, at least about, I guess, in that business, like your target market. It's
Right.
like medical practices, and
Hmm.
so there's obviously hospitals.
Hmm.
But most, and I wasn't aware of this until I got in the business, like most medical providers have like their private practices and like offices that are adjacent to the hospital.
Right.
So you've got like the main hospital, and then like all of the buildings around there are usually private practices.
Hmm.
And so we would just go to a hospital and just knock on doors, and give them a card. So I got exposed to cold calling. I got exposed to like, getting through the gatekeeper, because most of the time you want to get to like the decision maker, and you're dealing with
Yeah.
like, when you walk into a doctor's office, you're dealing typically in the beginning like with the receptionist, and so kind
Hmm.
of getting through them to the appropriate people. I mean, there are certain like techniques and things you can do.
So
But
on,
so I,
so you
go
also
ahead.
learned few important skills,
Oh
just
yeah,
here, right? Because I'm thinking that, okay, you are, it's very different from for someone in tech, right, where you are stopping at a doctor's office just uninvited and saying, hey,
oh
will
yeah,
you buy this product, right? It's like, it's not even cold calling, you're just showing up there. But you just mentioned that you're getting through the gatekeeper, so you're learning about communication skills, you're also learning
oh yeah,
about how to talk to people so that they give you the appointment, or they let you in so that you can
yeah,
talk to the main decision maker. And again, all
for
that
sure.
was learned on the job by getting, I mean, getting constantly getting rejected, or
Oh
uh
yeah,
yeah. Okay.
yeah, tons of rejection. But I mean, I kind of enjoyed it. There is like the cold calling, as far like some of it is like literally just like, picking up a phone and dialing, and I can
Hmm.
understand. I kind of enjoyed it because I mean you're like still like out and about, like walking around, interacting with people,
Hmm.
even if you got rejected. So I don't know, it helped pass the day. But
Hmm.
they weren't all rejections, and we definitely like sold plenty of people. So that, there I basically learned sales over the years with my dad. Eventually, he he built a treatment facility, to treat the medical waste, because previously he was hauling it to another company and paying them to like treat it.
Hmm.
And for those unaware, if you're curious or want to know, like, basically most of your medical waste, when it gets treated, years ago it got burned in incinerators, but with the EPA, and there are a few incinerators left, but they're very costly to run because of
Hmm.
just all of the
The
air quality stuff
regulations.
you have to, yeah, which is understandable. Um, so now most medical waste is actually, it's autoclaved, so it basically gets put in a giant oven, and cooked at high temperature and pressure, which
Hmm.
kills all the pathogens and stuff, and then it gets dumped in a landfill.
Okay.
Uh, so that's so my dad built a facility where he it was like basically a metal building, like a warehouse, put an autoclave and a boiler in there. So our autoclave was like 6 feet in diameter. It was like 30 feet long. It's like the size of a bus, a big tube with a door on the end. And so we had these big, you get these big bins, fill them up with medical waste, shove them in there, and then, pump steam in there from the boiler and cook it, dump it put it in a dumpster, and then, have a trucking company come haul the dumpster to a landfill and dump it out.
And
so that
was
I
that
was
just
a plant man.
sorry?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Now I was asking,
No,
was it just for your company, or did you also
yeah,
take waste from other companies, and that also became
we
part
did.
of your business?
We did. Yeah.
You did. So your
Yes.
business was expanding. So you were
Yeah.
going to the hospitals and asking them if you could be the waste disposal company, but then
We
you
still
also
didn't
had
do hospitals.
the private
We only did
facilities.
private practice, because the thing with
Huh.
hospitals is they generate a lot of volume.
Mm, mm.
And they typically, so we're getting into the nitty gritty. But we would charge on a per box basis, and the hospitals usually wanted to pay by weight because they generate so much volume. So we
So much,
we
yeah.
didn't deal with hospitals.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had other companies, medical waste companies, would bring their stuff to us and pay us to treat it. So we did that, and I was running the plant. So I learned sales, but then it was like I was like literally like dumping boxes of medical waste into big stainless steel bins and pushing them
Yeah.
in a giant pressure cooker, essentially.
Uh-huh.
And treating it, it was very like manual labor. It was kind of like blue collar work,
Yeah.
basically. So we did that, and then eventually, I don't want to spend too much time talking about my dad's business. He eventually sold it, and the company that he sold to, it's a publicly traded company. The company name is Stericycle.
Mhm.
And they, that was like basically they bought his company, and that, was pretty much like my dad retiring, like with the
Mhm.
amount they paid. He's like, okay, I'm done. And we also had to sign a non-compete, like we couldn't open a new business, and I think it was like
Yeah.
5 years. So he sold it, and at that point, it was like, okay, I need to look for a new job. They offered me a job, but I didn't really want to do that, and it was a huge corporate company. Even though I work at one now, like at the time, like I didn't want to go work for like a large corporate medical
Mm.
waste provider, right? So I was like, okay, well, I need to start looking for a job. So I started applying. And then I wound up at a company called Brennan Enterprises. Here,
Mhm.
they're a local remodeling contractor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They primarily do sell windows and doors. And so I
Mhm.
got hired as a sales guy there, selling windows and doors.
Okay.
Um, so if you're a homeowner and you want to replace all the windows in your house, you got like a 20, 30-year-old house,
Mhm.
when they're all foggy and all that stuff. You call a company like Brennan,
Mhm.
and I would show up, me or some other sales rep. We'd show up, like measure your windows, show you the different samples, give you the
Mm.
pitch, um, and I'd sell windows and doors,
Okay.
like
Okay.
front entry doors and like sliding doors, stuff like that.
So you were essentially coming and looking at getting requirements from the customers and then giving out quotes to your customers.
For sure, yeah,
Okay. You were
definitely.
not. So just wanted to make sure that were you your previous job was slightly different where you were cold calling. Is that something that you did here, or was this
No,
different? Okay,
these
this
are
was different.
more. These were definitely like highly qualified leads.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, from by the time we set the appointment, yeah, I mean, these are people that like want us to come and give them a quote. So like in that regards, the intent is really high versus me just like strolling in an office and like
Mm-hmm.
giving them a card. So it was a little different though, because like with doctors' offices, that in my dad's company was a B2B, but at the remodeling, it's B2C. Like we're dealing
Right.
with individuals, and so I think a lot of like my people skills and learning how to like communicate effectively with people, I learned at my job with Brennan,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I was running 3 or 4 leads a day. So I probably interacted with over, I was there for, I think, close to 8 years. I mean, I probably interacted with like thousands of
Mm-hmm.
homeowners during my time there, like thousands of different individuals. And I interacted with a lot working with my dad too, but uh, I don't know. Yeah, just like interacting with a wide variety of people and like all walks of life at the
Mm-hmm.
remodeling company. And just kind of learning how to like speak to a lot of different individuals, like from different backgrounds and different, just all kinds of differences, right?
Right.
So I think it definitely helped like me learn how to like engage with strangers, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so yeah, I think it definitely helped there. So I started as a sales guy there. Um, Shortly after I started there, and here's the Salesforce tie-in. Shortly after I started there, this is I think 2013. Um, the company started using Salesforce. They
Mm-hmm.
previously were using an in-house. I wouldn't even call it a CRM, but it was something they developed. It
Spreadsheets.
was well, no, it was web based.
Okay.
It was basically like an SQL database hosted on a
Mm-hmm.
server like a on-site or on-prem server.
So yeah.
But it was like maintained and developed by like offshore developers, and it like broke all the time, and it was just a mess. Like it
Okay.
it was not good. So is very, very basic in regards to what it could do, especially compared to like Salesforce.
Hmm.
So they started using Salesforce. So that was my first exposure to Salesforce, was like 2013-ish. And it was as an end user, right? I was just like a sales guy. So like they would set appointments. Those would be opportunities in Salesforce. And if we sold it, we'd like update the amount and upload various, like contracts and other files and stuff to the
Hmm.
job.
Hmm.
That was my experience, like as an end user, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to Salesforce. And at the time, again, it's a small company. They had, I don't know, 6 or 8 like full-time employees. Most of the other ones were they had like 40 or 50 subcontractors, like all the window crews and stuff. But they weren't dealing with like the office administration stuff, right? They're out installing Windows. So I think the office staff was, I don't know, 6 or 8 people, including me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, actually, no, not including me, because I started as a sales guy. But so that being said, small company, and they used a relatively small partner, like local partner, to implement it for them, and they didn't really need anything too fancy as far as like
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce configuration. Um, so I don't think it was too expensive, but they paid, I don't know how much money up front for the partner to implement it, got us going, and then it was almost, I don't know exactly how it played out, but it was almost kind of like there was like a retainer fee or something to
Mm-hmm.
keep this partner like on call if we wanted to make changes or whatever in Salesforce. And eventually the owner of the company was like, this is too expensive. I don't want to pay for this.
Hmm.
And so I kind of like raised my hand and was like, um, I'll handle that, or I'll deal
Yeah.
with that.
Were you afraid when you said that I'll handle that? Or like, did it just come naturally that maybe I can do it? Because at this point you are just using Salesforce. You're just end user
Mhm,
who's getting leads and reaching out to people. You have
mhm.
no idea about what's like how it is built, what the underlying technology is.
No,
You've
I
never
have no
been to
idea.
like the setup configuration, like nothing. But you still raise your
No.
hand and say, "Hey, let me do it." So were you scared? Like, what made you do that?
Um, no, I don't think I was scared. I mean, I was younger, right? I was like
Mm-hmm.
probably, I don't know, like 25,
Mm-hmm.
26. So
Mm-hmm.
like you're definitely like more, at least I was. I feel like younger people are generally more risk. What's the opposite of risk averse? Risk
I don't know.
prone.
Yeah,
Uh, or they're
maybe.
more open to taking risks. And
Yeah.
I was relatively young. It was early in my career. I'm like, hey, like, and it's actually a um a mindset that I still use and adopt to this day. It's like and it's always like say yes.
Hmm.
Kind of whenever people ask for help or there's like an internal project or whatever and they need extra hands, raise your hand and say
Hmm.
yeah. And
Hmm.
it's easy to like say no, like I don't want to deal with that, or just
Yeah.
be like nah. But a lot of times, if you say yes, I don't know, I found
Hmm.
it can be more fruitful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I raised my hand. I was like, yes, I will do that.
Hmm.
And I think I think it's been a while. I think they also paid me a little more.
Yeah.
Um,
So some extra
so I
motivation.
like yeah, yeah. I like well, and it kind of around the same time. And so I was still like an outside sales guy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Kind of around the same time, um, the girl that was handling our service, or the woman that was handling our service, kind of sweet old lady, she like quit unexpectedly, like out of nowhere.
Okay.
Like we were there Friday, and it was like, hey, her name is Amy. It's like, all right, have a good weekend, whatever. And then Monday, it's like, come in, and the boss is like, oh, Amy quit,
Oh, okay.
and she's not coming in. Like no 2 weeks, nothing. Like she's gone, and we're like, okay. I still don't really know what happened there, but yeah, she was gone.
Huh.
So the other thing was like, hey, we need like somebody to manage the service side.
Okay. Okay.
And so service at Brennan was, we replaced windows and doors, and we actually at the time we also did siding.
Hmm.
So it's like people calling like they got a crack in their glass, or their door, usually something glass related, like the glass broke or whatever. Something broke, and so like we need to send a tech out or start a warranty claim with the manufacturer or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different paths that you
Hmm.
can go down for service there.
And
Um,
was that all manual or was it automated to some extent since you already had a
it
partner?
was all manual,
Okay.
and
So
we
you had to
had
decide. You had to decide depending on what the case would be, what the next
Mhm.
steps would be.
Yeah.
Okay. So now at this point in your career, you are an outside sales as well as a customer service rep.
Well, so at that point, I actually I never fully stopped doing sales there, but I like outside sales, but I ramped it down a lot. I was
Hmm.
pretty much I was like an 8 to 5 in the office, but if there was a customer that was like relatively close to the office, I would like hop over there real quick.
Hmm.
Um, because Dallas Fort Worth, I don't know, what your viewing audience, like how geographic they are, but the Dallas Fort Worth metroplex is like freaking huge. Like
Huge. Yeah.
you go to the you go to the east, like east suburbs of Dallas to the west suburbs of Fort Worth. I mean, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive.
Easy. Yeah.
So, and same thing north to south. So, I mean, we had, if you're going to run 3 appointments in a day as a sales rep, I mean, it's typical outside sales rep, right? Like they
Hmm.
spend a lot of time on the road. Um, so if we could find one kind of close to the office, then yeah, I would run those. But yeah, I was primarily doing service. And then at the same time, I also started getting involved in the Brennan digital marketing. So they did all of their digital marketing in house.
Hmm.
And so that was really kind of my exposure. I guess Salesforce kind of dipped my toes a little bit, but
Hmm.
really the digital marketing is really kind of where I kind of jumped in head first.
Hmm.
Um, and so when I say they did all of their digital marketing in house, like at the time, 2014, 2015, like most remodeling companies, and I think even a lot still today, like they don't, they have like an ad agency that like manages their Google AdWords and Facebook ads and even their websites, all that stuff. They just like pay somebody to do it. Where at Brennan, we managed it all in house, and it was really like one of my great mentors. His name is Bobby Vickers. He was the CMO at Brennan,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I learned a lot from him, just about like marketing in general and like SEO and like how to build your website.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot of stuff. There's a lot to unpack there. I don't want to. We could talk a lot about marketing, but that being said, so I went over there and helped out with marketing. So I got familiar with like paid advertising, all that stuff. But at the same time, we decided to try out Pardot, which is another Salesforce product. It's kind of their marketing automation. And we got a quote from a partner to implement it. And it was like tens of thousands of dollars. It was, it was expensive. And my Bobby, he was also kind of my boss at the time. He was like, "Hey, Kyle, I think you could do this." And I was like, "Okay." I think we if I recall, I think we negotiated some like maybe a pay raise for me or something if I could do it because of the money. We were saving like a lot of money by me doing it versus paying a partner to do it. But yeah, I implemented Pardot, got that all set up, got pretty familiar with it. So Pardot, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, I got exposure to a lot of different Salesforce products. And at that point, there's a few more steps in my career there. Eventually I was promoted to like a sales manager. But I was still doing all the Salesforce stuff too, and like running leads occasionally. So that is kind of one thing with small business. It's you can get a lot of experience. You can wear many hats. It is a double-edged sword, I would say. Because small business is great for that. And like if you want to get a promotion, usually you're asked, if you're usually like you should be like on good terms with the owner or the boss, and they kind of view you almost more as like a friend than and so like if you ask for a promotion and make a decent case, it's like, I guess you could say it's kind of harder for them to like deny you. No. And then there's not like a big formal process that you might go through at like a big company. But that being said, I do know like I feel like, so I had a lot of great experience there, but I feel like having a big corporate name or a big logo on your resume, definitely there's a lot of value there. And sometimes it can, like having a small business that like nobody's really ever heard of, sometimes it can be detrimental in that regard. That's my personal, I don't know, opinion or anecdote. So yeah, I did that, learned all the Salesforce products, and and so I became very I guess very knowledgeable in Salesforce. We were using Salesforce for everything there. So somebody submitted a form on our website, it went into Salesforce. So there's like lead generation, lead capture. We were tracking, we spent a lot of time making sure our lead attribution was correct. So like, where did this lead come from? Is it organic? Did it come from a paid ad? Did it come from Yelp? Etc. And you can set that all up and, kind of how you build out your site and referral links and stuff like that.
If I may interject just for a second, I think I missed the part. So if we go back, your owner said, "Hey, I don't want to pay this partner. They're too expensive." You raised your hand. At that point, did you start implementing Salesforce or started working behind the scenes? Okay, so that was the point where you actually started getting exposed to Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. So also the Amy quit. So at that point, really you're doing 3 jobs. You're doing outside sales, you're doing Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, any changes, configurations, things like that. And then there's also actual customer service. Now I want to that's a lot.
Already making it sound like a lot.
It is.
Well, and that's the power of Salesforce, right? It enables you to be like incredibly productive.
Right. And then you also started getting yourself involved with digital marketing, and now you're also doing, implementing Pardot. But I want to, before we get into Pardot, I want to talk about Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, because when you're implementing Pardot, my guess is, you have some experience with Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. Now it's a smaller company. You have never experienced Sales Cloud or Service Cloud before. When was this? This was, what year was it, if I may ask?
Man, maybe 2016. Let me see if I can bring up my.
Was there Trailhead at that point? Were there enough trails or any resources like YouTube, things like that? How did you learn
I think Trailhead was like brand new.
Okay,
I don't know. Do you know when Trailhead launched?
I
I
don't.
don't
I
recall,
don't know.
but I do remember like so I'm an All-Star Ranger. I have like I don't know, I think like 650 badges
Okay.
and like I don't know 350,000 points or so. I have a lot, but it's
Mm-hmm.
um I feel like I've been using it since like the beginning.
Yeah.
So
But
you,
did you use that? Was that the resource that
that's
you
how I learned
used? Okay.
Trailhead. Yeah.
Trailhead.
I'm
So
pretty
everything
sure it was Trailhead and the documentation, right?
got it. And then this was like a brand new Salesforce implementation. You've never worked on it
Mhm.
before, now Salesforce and everyone says, hey, don't make any changes in production, right? You have to do it in sandbox. Like at that point, were you even aware of the concepts? Like, hey, there's a sandbox
No.
environment, it's a testing
We
environment.
we had we had sandboxes, but no, I was
Yeah,
that's definitely not best practice. I wouldn't
right.
recommend it, but no, I was like just making changes in prod.
Making changes in production, launching it.
Yeah.
If something breaks, you're fixing it. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, again, we weren't doing anything too complex. I mean, and so at the time we were using like workflow rules.
Hmm.
I don't I don't recall. I think Process Builder may have been around, but like we weren't really using it. So like we're using workflow rules. We're in Classic, like Lightning
Yeah.
wasn't available.
Hmm.
I think by 2016 it was, but like when I was first started using Salesforce, we were using Classic.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, definitely Trailhead. I learned a lot of stuff there, and I mean, if you like, one of the great things about Salesforce is there's like so many people use it.
Hmm.
If you run into an issue or you get stuck, like somebody else has probably had that same issue.
Right.
And if you Google it, like usually the forums are you'll find the answer there,
Right.
and it's kind of interesting too because there's like kind of mini celebrities in the
Hmm.
Salesforce forums because you see them like on every thread, and
Right.
they usually have like good answers.
Answers. Yeah.
So it's kind of actually it's one of them. Steve Moe is like I
Yes.
remember seeing it. I remember seeing his name a lot, and this is like years ago.
Yeah.
And I know like I think he spoke at Dreamforce, or he's spoken a couple times at Dreamforce.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's the community is also like where you
Super
find a
helpful.
lot of answers. And I
Yeah.
think there's actually maybe once or twice where like I still couldn't figure it out, and I like
Hmm.
asked a question. And one of them, Steve Moe, it was like a reporting question. I remember he replied, and like what he gave me helped me
Works.
solve it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
the
amazing.
community is very powerful. If you can't find the answer, which is probably it's rarer and rarer.
Hmm.
It's like, but if you can't, you can still like ask a question, and somebody will usually answer with the
Yeah.
info you need.
So when you are going through these implementations, you're figuring things out, you're learning on Trailhead, you're going on looking at documentation, asking questions on forums. Are you
Mhm.
also studying for certifications?
No,
No.
no. So
That's a
I
relief
actually
because
got.
I'm like this guy has got to be so busy. He's doing like 5 jobs in 8 hours.
I mean, it's I I got my first certification, my admin certification. I think I got it in 2018.
Okay.
Um, and I wasn't even aware of them. My boss was like, "Hey, if you get this certification, I'll give you a bonus."
Hmm.
I was like, "All right, sweet."
Yeah.
And so yeah, I went and got it. I actually didn't study. Well, I think there was a trailhead mix, a trail mix. And it was like I think the trail mix now has a lot more content.
Hmm.
But it was like kind of prep for the admin, and I like went through that real quick. I think I had like already completed a lot of the modules, just in my using Trailhead,
Yeah.
and I didn't. That was like how I studied. I went through the Trailhead, and when I was done, I scheduled my exam and took it,
Hmm.
and I
Okay.
passed on the
Hmm.
first. Um, but I think mine. I feel like it seems like the admin exam now is like it's a lot harder, and there's a lot
Yeah.
more, I mean, features and
Features.
stuff
Yeah.
that like
Yeah. For
that
sure.
didn't exist when and because the exams are usually kind of lagging too, right? They're not like if there's a brand new feature, that comes out in a release, they're not going to put that in
Mhm.
questions about it in exams. So
Yeah.
the exams are, I have no idea. I'm going to guess they're at least like a year like
Mm.
behind.
Must be.
So like, yeah, like I feel like there's just not as, there's a whole lot more features and stuff you
Mhm.
can do on the platform now than when I was like an admin
When we're
and
admin.
when I got
Nice.
my certification. But yeah, so yeah, that was
So
when I got my first certification.
in 2018. Okay. So you are implementing Salesforce, you're implementing Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. Then you start integrating Pardot, and that is kind of your first Salesforce integration project, right? Because it's not really in the core, it's separate, but you integrate it
Yeah,
with Salesforce. So that's
yeah, that
yeah.
was my first. I'm trying to think. I think we had, I mean, we had some other integrations, but they were usually like managed packages,
Hmm.
which are, it's basically like downloading an app and installing it.
Yeah.
It's not very
Hmm.
hard. And
Yeah.
God, it's been so long now since I did that. I think Pardot was similar at the time. I
Yeah.
think it was a managed
It is. Yeah.
package. I don't know if I don't know. Is it still is?
I don't know. I worked in Pardot like at my previous company.
Yeah, I haven't
3 years
touched it in
back.
years. So
Yeah. So then how did the shift happen? So now you are in a company that knows that you know how to implement Salesforce, you know how to implement Service Cloud, you got a promotion, you're now a sales manager, you have implemented Pardot, looks like the owners, you have a great mentor there. How did the transition happen from that company to Salesforce? Or what made you move to Salesforce?
yeah, I mean, so I had basically gotten to the top at that
Hmm.
company. There was nothing really, no roles or anybody above me. I mean, I reported directly to the owner.
Hmm.
Um, the owner's son had recently joined.
Yeah.
He's a little younger than me, and I mean, so it was clear, like, he would take over the company.
Hmm.
And I didn't necessarily anticipate that I would, but I knew,
Yeah.
like, okay, I don't like there's not really anything left here for me.
Right.
And I didn't want to work there for the next, like, 20 or 30 years. Um, I just, I just didn't want to go down that career path.
Hmm.
And so I got pretty good at Salesforce. I knew the Salesforce like economy and the Salesforce ecosystem was like getting really popular and buzzing. Um, Not as popular as it is today, but
Hmm.
it,
Was definitely booming. You could hear
excuse me.
people talk about Salesforce administrators,
Yeah, for
developers,
sure.
consultants. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to like. I really kind of wanted to get into IT, and
Hmm.
I wanted to work at Salesforce. So I started applying for positions. I originally applied for SE positions.
Hmm.
And I also wanted to get a bunch of certifications to like help my resume. So probably about a year before, or I made a conscious decision, like, okay, I'm going to try and get a bunch of certifications and get a new job.
Hmm.
And I would say I worked at that for, I don't know, like maybe a year and a half. I wound up getting 5 additional certs on top of my admin.
Hmm.
So I have admin, and I think this is the order I went in: admin, platform app builder, advanced admin, sales cloud, service cloud, platform developer 1, PD1.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So I wanted to get a job as a Salesforce dev.
Okay.
So obviously I got the PD1 cert. We were doing I was kind of doing a little bit of coding at my old company. Made some like Visualforce pages and
Hmm.
like some stuff on our website. Not really Salesforce related, but um, so I wanted to get a job as a developer. I kind of learned like I probably would be taking a pay cut because I'd have to start off as like a junior dev because I didn't really
Yeah.
have any like real dev experience.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, I don't know if I
You
want
want
to
to
go
do
down
that?
that route.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, let me try to get an SE position, which is like a technical sales position at Salesforce. Tried that, didn't hear anything. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'll try consulting. And so I started applying at multiple companies. I had a couple of interviews with a few different consulting partners, and I wound up interviewing and getting hired by a company called Acumen Solutions. And it's kind of fortuitous, I guess, that so I got hired by Acumen Solutions, and I interviewed with Acumen people, like all that.
Yeah.
It was an Acumen process.
Yeah.
I got hired in February, and I think it was February they publicly announced that they were being acquired by
By
Salesforce.
sales. Yeah.
So, and actually, I mean, the people at Acumen, they made me aware. They were like, "Hey, this is
happening." Yeah.
So, like, by the time you get hired and all that stuff, like, you're going to be a Salesforce employee. And I was like, sweet. So that was my way in. So Acumen, they they have a very strong presence in the public sector, especially like the federal U.S. government. And so I think that may be part of the reason why Salesforce acquired them, is because they have such a strong like public sector presence. And because of that, now we've been folded in. We're officially part of the Salesforce Professional Services. But all the projects I've been on have been public sector. And I know there's some other people that are working on like private clients as well. So it's not all public sector. But yeah, that was basically how I got in. I was like, I want to get out of the construction biz, and I want to get into tech. And so I leveraged my, experience with Salesforce, to do that.
You had such an amazing journey and such an unexpected journey, right? I mean, you are doing industrial engineering?
Industrial distribution. Yeah.
From industrial distribution, you go into sales. You're doing cold calling. From cold calling, you start working as you're managing the plant. You're doing all the manual things of putting boxes in the
I was in great shape, man.
Yeah.
That was like the best shape I've ever been in.
Yeah, for sure. You're working like 8 hours.
8 hours, like lift up like 30, 40-pound boxes all day. I mean,
all jacked.
Yeah, I was in pretty good shape then.
Yeah. And then you go to another company, you're doing, and that's the highlight for me, right? Where you're doing like 5 things, right? You're an outside sales, you're doing service, you're doing sales cloud implementation, service cloud implementation. You have involved yourself in digital marketing. You're implementing Pardot. And then you decide to get certifications, and then you dedicate 1 year, get 5x certified, and then fate has it that you are now part of Salesforce. It's an amazing, very unexpected, but such an amazing journey.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Yes.
It does sound like a lot, right, when you word it like that. I mean, at the time, I didn't think I wasn't like overwhelmed or like getting burned out. I didn't think I was doing too much. But yeah, kind of like what I said earlier, like if you have any opportunities, your target audience, I don't know, like maybe some people are unemployed or some are currently employed, but they're, working in something totally unrelated like I was. But yeah, if you have those like opportunities, or if you hear of opportunity, don't be afraid to raise your hand. It initially, like your gut feeling, it's probably going to like make you like a little uncomfortable and you don't want to do it. And sometimes that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Because, those people, especially like larger organizations, the people that raise their hands are the ones that get noticed.
Yeah, and I see that throughout your career, where you are raising your hand and saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be an outside sales. Hey, someone quit. I can do customer rep. Hey, Sales Cloud implementation, Service Cloud implementation. I don't know what Salesforce is. I don't know how to build a workflow rule. I'll figure it out. Pardot, sure, I will figure it out. I see that constant pattern, constant thread in your career. And again, now we are part of the same Salesforce, Ohana Salesforce company.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really amazing to hear that. So it's very inspiring. I'll tell you that. I want to ask a few questions.
Sure.
These I mean, this could be a lightning round, but there's so much to learn from your journey. One thing that I do see in your career, and I've come from India, and communication, small talk is not natural for me. You've come from sales, so what is one communication skill secret that you will tell, you would like to share with us?
Man, that's a great question. I try to find like common ground or a common thread. Like if you're just having like when I don't know if it'll be in the recording. I think before we started recording, like you and I were talking about, like we have kids and the kids playing soccer.
Yeah.
Like, and if you can build some kind of like common ground with, somebody that may or may not be a stranger, right? They're more likely to like open up, and be, I don't know, more forthcoming.
Awesome.
Yeah.
As a sales rep, you did a lot of outside sales. You also, which means you're also dealing with rejections. This is something that you also deal as part of the Salesforce ecosystem. A lot of people do not actually attempt exams because they're afraid of failing. In your career, I've actually never seen you, getting afraid, or maybe you were at that point, but when I hear the story now, it doesn't feel like you're afraid of rejections or, hey, maybe I'll not be able to do that. How did you handle that emotion? How did you handle rejections, if there were any?
Yeah, I mean, so I did fail the platform app builder. I failed that the first time I tried, because that was the second exam I took.
Yeah.
And so here's my excuse, right? It was the second exam I took. The first one I took, I like didn't really study for, and I passed it. But I've been, a lot of it was like stuff that I had. Yeah, it was like stuff I was dealing with day to day. So I kind of took the same approach in the second one, and it just wiped me out. It destroyed me. I failed it.
Yeah.
So I retook that and I passed it. But I mean, dealing with rejection or failure, I mean, there's just so many like books and opinions and thoughts on this subject. I mean, for me, you just kind of accept it for what it is and move on. That's how I do it. I know that's much easier said than done, and some people probably struggle with that.
Right.
But that's just my mindset. And that's how I take it and approach it. I will shout out to there's a daily like email newsletter that I get. It's called the Daily Stoic. And a lot of it is like Stoic thoughts and philosophies. And that's a big piece of Stoicism and the Stoic philosophy is like when Stoic sometimes has kind of like a negative connotation, like people hear Stoic and they think like emotionless. But that's not necessarily true. It's more like being in control of your emotions and not, when bad or unfortunate things happen, accept them for what they are, but move on, or focus on the things that you can control. Like if I applied to a bunch of different companies, even Salesforce, right, and I didn't hear anything, I can't control what the HR person or whoever may or may not have looked at my resume. I don't have any control over that, but I can control the amount of time that I devote to refining it in my resume, all that stuff. So
Right.
Stoicism.
Awesome. I'll put that link in the description of this video. Now let's get to lightning round. First is, do you prefer bacon or sausages?
Oh man. That's a good question. Probably bacon.
Bacon. Okay. One place you would like to teleport right now.
I would like to teleport.
Mm-hmm.
Florence, Italy.
Nice. I love that place.
Yes.
Your favorite food.
Chicken fried steak.
Awesome.
Tex-Mex close second.
Tex-Mex close second. All right. Chipotle
Yeah.
is my all-time favorite food, by the way. I can eat
Chipotle
it.
is good. Chipotle is good.
Yes. Yes. Uh, if you had one secret superpower, what would that be?
Flying.
Flying?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Don't even have to think about it.
Love it. Love it. All right. Those were all the questions. Like, I mean, I had such a wonderful conversation. I think we geeked out a bit on your initial part of the career, which was medical waste, and I'm sure it is going to be
Yeah.
enlightening for a lot of the viewers as well, because it's no one thinks about it, no one knows how it works. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was amazing. But again, your journey has been so inspiring. Like I said, it's full of twists and turns, and you wanted to be in tech and you made it happen. 6 certifications now. Do we have 6 certifications or more?
I got 7 now.
Okay, 7 certifications, over 600 badges.
Yeah.
From starting in a family-owned business to now working at Salesforce. It's very, very, truly very inspiring journey, and I thank you for your time today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I mean, if one person can, take some insight from this video and change their life, then that's all I need.
Thank you, awesome.
Well, I am extremely inspired, and there was so much to learn from this conversation. My biggest takeaway from this conversation was sometimes you have to say yes. That's what Kyle did. He said yes to situations that were probably uncomfortable, but he figured things out. I would love to know what you liked about this conversation. What was your biggest takeaway? Add them to the comments below. By the way, check out all other videos on my channel. Did you know there's a completely free 10-day CRM analytics course? Check out the videos. It comes with files and step-by-step instructions on creating your data sets, your dashboards, mobile-friendly dashboards, as well as smart transformations like time series analysis and sentiment analysis. As always, thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will see you soon.